Welcome to the 30th anniversary of Real Affirmations LGBTQ plus International Film Festival, held October the 20th through 22nd, 2023 in our nation's capital. This year's historical film festival presents 58 new, retro, and all-compelling international documentary, short, and retro feature films from 22 countries. 32 films will screen live at the state-of-the-art movie theater inside the Eden Hotel, 1201 K Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and 43 films can be screened virtually from the comfort of your home or on that long commute. Joining me today is one of the filmmakers to give us a behind-the-scenes peek at their inspiration, process, and anecdotal experiences in making L'Apprenti, The Learner. Welcome, Angelique Axelrode. Hello, tell us your role on the film and where you're joining us from.
Thank you for the introduction. I am the writer-director of L'Apprenant. I'm calling in from unceded Tongva Gabrielino land in Los Angeles, California.
Beautiful. Thanks for taking the time out, first of all, to submit such a sweet chick flick to us, and also for joining us for this talk back. I'm sure our patrons will, if they haven't already seen the film, they are going to want to see it after this talk. So what inspired you to create the film?
The film was inspired really by my experience living in Paris with some family friends after graduating from undergrad, trying to figure out who I was, what was going on, all the things. And I have some family in France as well, so was kind of doing some just identity searching, I think, and also was very much a baby gay at that point in my life when I was living there. And I was also in this French class trying to learn French and figure out how to navigate in Paris and how to fit in with all the cool Parisians when I clearly was not that. And it really, I saw this like very clear parallel between learning a new language and learning a new culture with also like figuring out my baby gayness, because just like in French class when I was struggling to commit to the accent because I felt ridiculous trying to say certain words with the French accent that is like super difficult to replicate. It felt kind of like the same awkward vulnerability that was required figuring out my queerness and like flirting with another woman, and like I felt super awkward and weird, and I couldn't translate from these heteronormative scripts that were conditioned into me from an early age. Just like I couldn't with French, you can't really translate from English all the time. So all these like parallels coming up, and you just had to commit to your dorky accent in French class, just like you have to commit to like embarrassing yourself as a baby gay and just putting yourself out there. So then this film kind of came to fruition and got some friends on board, and we shot it.
Mission accomplished, because I felt all of that as as I became a part of the voyeuristic experience of watching you go through all of this. In describing the film's inspiration that way, I was stuck with this one line that the professor said to you: "You can't think in English and write in French." And I thought how apropos that was, not only in coming of age in your queerness, but also in any endeavor that we take. We have to be present in it and fully immersed in it. And so thanks for giving us that and sharing with me that the tension that you had in developing it and experiencing it. And it is definitely communicated, considering I'm just seeing the film and just meeting you. It was very well communicated, and so I'm gonna keep that on my Facebook cover board. You can't think in English and write in French, and compel others who's watching this film to totally immerse yourself, even in the awkward moments. other than being inspired by life and almost biomythographical in a way, what other filmmakers inspire you in the art, or particularly, and I'll talk more in a minute about your film, how the film goes from static to um, um, overexposed, and then back, all of these wonderful techniques that happen in there. What other filmmakers do you draw inspiration from?
Mm. I think for this film, I was trying to watch, I really love new wave French cinema from,
Okay.
when was that? Like the uh 40s, 50s, 60s. Um, and specifically like Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, with like the jump cuts in that car scene and all the
Yes.
kind of like rules that I guess film was kind of still formalizing all these rules and norms, but they were really just pushing boundaries with film language and like not concerned with, marketing the film and making it to a T, checking all the boxes. He was really experimenting along with a lot of other filmmakers from that era, like Agnes Godard as well. Or not Agnes Godard, Agnes, Agnes Varda, as well, was like really just creating their own film vocabulary. And with coming from the static to the using some of the like damaged film that we use and overexpose the movement shots, it was kind of like trying to nod to Jean-Luc Godard a little bit, but obviously he's like this insane film auteur, so we tried our best. But I think that was a big inspiration that I was drawing from. Also other experimental filmmakers like Maya Deren, who shot on film, but that's why we wanted to include film as well, into our digital timeline. And was also watching a whole bunch of other like coming of age films, like Pariah is like one that I love, and Rafiki, which is one that I also really loved, and wanting to kind of have a different type of coming of age ish, because it's such a quick snapshot, but um making a little bit, like making it coming into your queerness a little bit more playful and fun, because not to say it's not traumatic sometimes, because I think obviously for a lot of people, like, yeah, it's definitely a little traumatic in the society we live in and all that, but I think there's also so much like playful curiosity that comes with figuring it all out that sometimes I haven't fully seen reflected in like traditional coming of age queer films. So it's kind of using all this as inspiration to, yeah, when we created the film.
And this is, I'm sure, for our younger filmmakers will appreciate this, that you blended or film and digitized images. And so were the film images intentionally overexposed and appearing to be corrupt, or did you have a treatment that made them look like that to carry the tension and the uncertainty? It is clearly what it communicated.
Mm. Well, thank you for saying that. I think honestly, I want to say it was all planned out to a T, but um my Bolex camera actually was kind of broken, and I didn't
Okay.
really know it was broken at the time, because that's why it kind of made that shaky image,
Mhm.
which was ended up being super cool. Um but we did kind of lose a lot of our other shots, which was an interesting challenge once I developed it, because it was just it got like it was getting jammed in my camera, so I kept having to like roll it back up, and the shaky image was produced because it wasn't clipping into the reel properly, like the sprockets.
Yeah.
So, and then I think which also caused the exposure to be overexposed. So there was definitely some like, but then of course then it kind of totally worked. For we didn't really have to do a lot of post-production treatment to get that look. So it was maybe the universe doing
And
its
we
thing
felt
for
it.
us.
Yeah, and it felt organic to the story. Even that you had the vision to do both, but where it appeared was definitely organic to the telling of the story and the evolution of the characters. The sad part, without giving away to giving away a spoiler, is when the French couple dismissed her because she couldn't speak French, and they got up, and I was like, oh, they probably missed a lovely opportunity for a throuple or a menage a trois or something, because it was clear that she was there to learn about herself and the language and the culture. And when we think of French romanticism, we also think, of that. And so that was like, whoa, I didn't expect them. I really expected the typical, oh yeah, sit on this side, sit on this side, let's see what happens. So I was kind of sad for my girl right there. Tell me about the casting. Huh? Say that again.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you got that kind of hidden, because there's a lot of kind of like hidden things with the French that's being said and what the teacher and everything's kind of flying over the character's head, but also hoping that the audience was able to grasp some of those moments. So I'm glad that
we're getting
that little sexual innuendo.
Yep. And I before we go to the casting, I did love the close-up of the mouths articulating, and I was like, wow, this is what she's trying to get her to see and think in her head, as opposed to this other. It's like, be free to practice your queerness, be free to practice the language, be free to think in French. And so that was a really a shot that carried, and the way that it showed up in those few spots were really impactful, and embraced the whole storyline for me. So now talk about the characters. Where did you the cast is from a casting call? Were they friends? And I'm particularly talking about the teacher and the girl, the lady she meets, and then a few of the auxiliary characters that just sort of were there.
Yeah, so the film was kind of created fast and furiously because it was in my last couple weeks that I was living in Paris. So a lot of it was just friends who, like the main La Prenante, the learner character, is my friend Tachi, who I had met like the last year, and Cammy, who plays La Femme, is someone that I had gotten like was out randomly sat with us at this dinner place that we went to every week, and like the owner is super cool. It's Laria. Edouard is the owner there, and that's actually where we shot the party scene, is in the back room at the restaurant, because he's just the super generous, nice guy who let us film in the back. But it was actually at Laria where I met Cammy. We randomly, another person I was with is Italian, and Cammy is Italian, and the owner of the restaurant was just like, oh, go sit with him, they're also Italian. And so had ended up kind of talking to her and was like, oh, I don't, and then I just like, for some reason I like had this feeling, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna like get to know this person more somehow. And then had ended up reaching out to her because she had also mentioned that she was interested in film. So ended up reaching out to her and casting her for La Femme. And then all the auxiliary characters were, one of our producer, Cordelia, was getting her master's in Paris and is a friend of a friend, and she ended up coming on and bringing on a bunch of other students to be the extras. And the teacher was that's actually where I was taking French classes, was at Language Apart, which is in like the 3rd arrondissement, I think, of in Paris. And I would just walk there I think it was like every day for a little bit. And she wasn't my teacher, but she, I think, is one of the co-founders of the school, and then ended up being down to just, jump in as the actual teacher for the film. And everyone was so nice. Like filming there was really special because everyone was so open to collaborating. And in a place like LA where it's such a big, and France, but in Paris too, of course, there's a bunch of films coming out of Paris, but it just felt a little bit it felt more supportive than if I, you know, walked into a random restaurant here. It just had a totally different energy to it. Because I think of how fast paced it was too, which I think was, you know, a good thing and a difficult thing. But yeah, it was basically just friends and people that I had met during my time there.
So fast paced, exactly how many days did it take you to shoot, or how many hours? The way you keep saying fast paced, I'm thinking we did this over one night of drinking and chatting.
We shot in 2 days across Paris, but the way from like start to finish, like I want to say it was like 3 weeks of like total like pre-production, production wrap up, and then I left and I randomly found our DP on LinkedIn. I had looked up like DPs and I was like, where? Because I was like, oh, I know I need to make this film. And I just don't really know. I was asking some people about like other cinematographers that they knew, and nothing was really materializing. So I went on LinkedIn of all places, and Orion had posted like 30 minutes before I looked and was like, if you need a DP or Steadicam operator in Paris, let me know. And I looked on her profile, and she was super cool photographer, like um very artful in her framing and photographing people is what she mainly photographs. But so then it ended up working out super well. And
So we thank the universe for making all these wonderful connections in this 3 week and 2 day shoot period. But also, you need to be the spokesperson for LinkedIn for having such a nice link up.
yeah.
So tell me, what was left on the cutting room floor? I know you said some of the film was damaged in the reel, but and so it had, it was left out, obviously. But what other scenes perhaps were shortened or just didn't work once you began to see the story?
Mm. I think we were trying to, yeah, we were really trying to get into the protagonist's head um through these kind of like dreamlike sequences where we were, you know, pushing tension with using the film and questioning the reality of the images. I think some of that we could have pushed a little bit more if we had the film that we shot from the party sequence that we shot at the restaurant at the beginning when she's just entering into the party. Because it also is such like a heady experience learning how to, you know, get out of your head and be present, like you were saying earlier, not just in the moment, but like in your identity and learning another language. And because you can't be in your head and learn anything really, because it's gonna trip you up. So I think we could have leaned more into that with the film, but we used a lot of our BTS camcorder footage actually was incorporated into some parts of the film too, that our main character Tachi, who plays La Prenante, had a camcorder and was like recording certain moments. And because the film footage, a lot of it we had to unfortunately not use, we ended up looking through the BTS stuff and used a lot of that into some of the snapshots for those transitions and kind of montagey moments. And our editor Jackie Carrier also did an amazing job kind of blending everything together and making it all cohesive.
And having those various mediums actually reflects what life feels like at times when we have to not patchwork our lives together, but well, we have to try different mediums to become the product that we are, and in our personhood. Let me ask you a bit about the we stepped outside to take a smoke scene. Was that shot in the back room, from the back room of the restaurant, or was there an alley somewhere else that you all had to go to on location to shoot?
That was at the outside of a studio that we shot the couch scene at. Um and yeah, that was just the sound person had a studio Moliere that was outside of Paris that we ended up just going to because shooting on the alley right by the restaurant was it was a pretty popular street, so we just thought to minimize, although it could have also maybe been a little bit more like Jean-Luc Godard to just shoot it out in the alley despite everything going on. But that was outside of a different studio, outside of Paris, so a separate location from the restaurant. Yeah.
Because I was clear of the absence of alley noise. And that's what made me go, how did we go from the vitality of the dance room and then the alley is pristine in a way? And so that was just kind of a start. But don't mind me. I'm the person who watches film and sees the character change shoes. So
yeah. No, I think that's a good point too, because I was going in between like making the scenes realistic, but also like how do we question whether or not it's actually happening or if it is in the character's head. But again, I think we kind of we could have pushed that a lot more to get the audience like wondering, like not just wondering if it was like like a set location discrepancy, or like, oh, is this actually happening, or did they actually go outside to smoke, or all the things. So that's a good point, and I think is something that I'm hoping to develop this concept further, and I think, yeah, putting those moments into a little bit more tension and question of like, is this actually happening, is something that I'm wanting to explore, because for me, I feel like my queerness lived in my head for so long, and all these ideas and experiences were literally happening in a vacuum in my head rather than actually me experiencing them in real life. So, and I just think I think it is a pretty universal experience with, longing for any type of, for if it isn't queerness, if it's any type of, connection or something that you're trying to reach but can't for some reason, there's a block. And I just think it's really interesting to how do we portray it's just happening in a character's head versus happening in real life. So yeah, more to think about. So thank you for that comment.
So personally, was the hand scene and passing the cig or the fag in your head, living in your head, or did the camera shot just happen once you were cutting it?
Like
when they were passing the cigarette and the little fingered play.
Yeah.
That's so girly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those moments too of like those close-up small subtle cues that are so queer, like these little hints that you get from whether you look at, what someone's like, what they're wearing, what their nails look like, random little things that you notice when you're queer because of the little subtle hints, or the passing of a cigarette, which can feel really, mundane and transactional. But then what if there's like a certain, long grasp or exchange, like your fingers are touching for a little bit longer, and then it's this tension. And it's like also like, oh, is this, you're just passing a cigarette, but it's like, are you just passing a cigarette? So it's again uncertainty.
Exactly.
And that was actually a shot that we got inspired by from Call Me by Your Name. There's a really cool close-up shot of them passing the cigarette before I think all their tension releases. So yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a sweet moment. So were there any particular bloopers or blessings? Well, you talked about the blessings of the location and the community that was organic to the story and the shoot, the character and your experience. And so my question is, are there any other bloopers or that happened that you kind of go, I'm just glad that we survived that?
I think honestly what was super fun and definitely challenging at times was working with a French speaking crew, because our cast, of course, Tachi, the main character, grew up in the United States, and communicating with Tachi was was, easy because we were both native English speakers, but a lot of other people on the team were not, which was this kind of meta experience with the film, like navigating how to communicate with someone of a totally different background and language, with speaking with Orion and Alex, who is our sound designer. They're both native French speakers, and my French is like just as bad as the main character's French in the film. So I was not able to converse with them in French, and their English is really, really quite good too, but I had to. And it was also my first time directing a short film on my own, or period. And it was just, I had to be so intentional with my work, because I oftentimes will like ramble a little bit, as maybe people watching this interview can kind of tell, but I couldn't do that when I was talking to Orion or Alex, as they'd literally be like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, oh, I guess I don't really know what I'm talking. I needed to be very, concise with my words, but they were so kind and easy to work with that it was not a huge issue. But it was definitely like, by the end I was like, oh my gosh, I need to stop drinking coffee and take a chill pill for a little bit. But yeah, I think blooper wise, I think we had honestly, our shoot was pretty seamless. We ended up we did one reshoot in LA to get more of the close-up moments of Tachi with kind of the purpley light around, to get this kind of like dream-like thing that we didn't have time to shoot in Paris. But yeah, and then aside from, the BTS was a blessing that we were able to use, even though the film didn't pan out exactly as we had hoped. But yeah, it all kind of came together as it needed to.
So this is the first project for you?
Yes, this is my like directorial short film debut. Yeah.
So what has been in the works since you completed this one?
There's been a couple projects since. I made another short film, A Tale of Two Sisters, really like right after, a couple months after we wrapped in Paris. And then they were both kind of in post-production at the same time. And that's a dance narrative film inspired by a mo'olelo, which means story in Hawaiian, of Hi'iaka Kapolio Pele, who's in Akua, a goddess, and her sister Pele. And my sister and I created this like narrative, but also dance film about the sisters' relationship, because we just learned so much from encountering this story from our cultural heritage, and it helped us in our relationship as sisters. So then we were just inspired to create that film. And made another film, another kind of dance narrative experimental film for Straight 8 Film Festival, which is shooting on like a single roll of 8mm. There's no post-production. And that was super fun and a huge challenge, because you basically send in your film as it is and then send in an audio track separate, and they develop it and combine it for you, and then they screen the top 25, which we were lucky enough to be a part of, which was a super cool experience, because it was so much planning ahead and calculate, because I'm very much like a run and gun, like I love that type of filming, but that definitely helped discipline me a little bit to, we had to literally plan out every roll and like calculate it to seconds. And then lastly, I just finished production on another experimental short called Kai Hali'a, which means Sea of Memory, that I created on Oahu for the past 4 months with my residency with Trades Air, and also being supported by the Native Arts and Culture Foundation to create it into an expanded media performance. So incorporating like projections with live technology tracking using motion capture detection technology, like with Connect cameras, like the Xbox camera things that track your movement, and using film in that as well, which is kind of a common thread in most of my pieces, is trying to incorporate film with new digital stuff and this new technology with projection and then live performance incorporated into kind of this like immersive installation. So that's going to be the next year or so, and then hoping to also make another queer fun short film in the next couple months. So
But your commitment to filmmaking is clear because of all of the mediums and the technology that you're using to create it. It feels so innovative as well as avant-garde. So like we're gonna keep our eye on you, Miss First Film out of the bag, and it is such a lovely experience. And to hear the background, not only in production but also how organic so much of the story is, through the cast and through you moving out of your head. We are just so glad that you could share it with us. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our young filmmakers, our patrons, the viewers, or any final words?
Um, I mean, I guess young filmmakers is just, yeah, keep making films. I know everyone says it and it's kind of annoying to hear, but it's gonna feel like, I don't know, you're not gonna, it's hard when you feel like you're not supported for your work, but it does come with persistence and time. And you just have to be your biggest advocate. And hopefully, and your mom too, hopefully, but I don't know. It's like for a long time, it's going to be just, you're going to feel like you're advocating alone for your work. But just a reminder that, your work is going to touch a lot of people and you should keep creating. Yeah. And thank you so much for the interview. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as well as enjoyed the chick flick, the girl flick, the figuring out how and who I'm going to be flick. So thank you for making the film, Angelique. So thank you for enhancing our patron experience by this gift of time and insight. Make sure you all go and see L'Apprenante, The Learner by Angelique Axelrode. Tickets can be purchased at the dccenter.org/real affirmations, and expect all the feels: laughter, tears, reflection, and awe. And on behalf of Kimberly Bush, Director of the DC Center and Real Affirmations, we invite you to join us for this iconic film experience. Signing off with immense gratitude to our filmmaker, supportive patrons, and our August roster of sponsors: Mayor Muriel Bowser's Office on LGBTQ Affairs, Gilead, AIDS Health Foundation, Wegmans, and Tito's. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you at the movies.